Donald Trump just threatened to double tariffs on virtually every Chinese product by November 1st. China says America broke the peace, and they're not backing down. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that means for your wallet and the global economy. Here's what just happened. On Friday, Donald Trump announced he will impose 100% additional tariffs on Chinese goods entering the United States. That's on top of tariffs already in place. He's also threatening large-scale export controls on virtually every product China makes, including all critical software. The deadline? November 1st. China responded Sunday with a blistering statement. According to the Financial Times on October 12th, Beijing's Commerce Ministry said the U.S. has continuously introduced a series of new restrictions against China since trade talks in Madrid last month. They accused Washington of putting Chinese companies on trade blacklists and escalating the conflict. The ministry added, China's position on tariff wars has been consistent. We do not want to fight, but we are not afraid to fight. So what broke? Just weeks ago, both countries seemed to be pulling back. They held trade talks in Madrid. A meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping was expected in South Korea later this month. There was cautious optimism that the trade war, which nearly became a total embargo earlier this year, might actually cool down. Then September happened. The U.S. tightened export controls on Chinese companies to block access to advanced semiconductors. Washington also increased fees on China-built ships visiting American ports. Beijing saw these moves as escalations, proof, in their words, that the Trump administration has low credibility. Why does this matter to you? Because tariffs are taxes, and you pay them. When the U.S. slaps 100% tariffs on Chinese imports, American companies importing those goods pay more. They pass those costs to you at the register, your phone, your laptop, your kids' toys, your appliances, all more expensive. And it's not just consumer goods. China responded this week by expanding export controls on rare earths and battery materials. Those are critical inputs for electric vehicles, wind turbines, defense systems, and advanced manufacturing. According to the Financial Times, Beijing also launched an antitrust investigation into U.S. chipmaker Qualcomm and imposed fees on American-owned ships docking in Chinese ports. Global supply chains are now bracing for disruption. China insists the impact will be extremely limited. They say companies need not worry and that applications for civilian use will be approved. But analysts aren't so sure. When the world's two largest economies weaponize trade, no one escapes unscathed. Let's look at the receipts. Before the Geneva Truce in May, Trump had hit China with 145% tariffs. Xi retaliated with 125% levies on American goods. A virtual trade embargo loomed. The two sides stepped back just in time. Now we're heading back to the brink. Feng Chucheng, a founding partner at Hutong Research in Beijing, told the Financial Times that both sides appeared aligned after Madrid to avoid escalation. But U.S. actions in September changed the calculus. Beijing, he said, is escalating first to force a negotiation reset rather than waiting passively for the next talks. Translation: China is playing hardball to regain leverage before any face-to-face meeting. And there's another layer. Yanmei Si, a senior fellow with the Mercator Institute for China Studies, pointed out that while the U.S. has trade leverage, China may have the upper hand when it comes to corporate vulnerability. Her reasoning: there are way more American companies producing in China than the other way around, and some of them, like Apple and Tesla, are the crown jewel of corporate America. Think about that. Apple assembles most of its iPhones in China. Tesla's Shanghai factory is one of its most important production hubs. If Beijing decides to squeeze those companies, through investigations, regulatory delays, or nationalist boycotts, American shareholders and workers feel it immediately. So what's the pushback? Some will say Trump is simply being tough, that China has cheated on trade for decades, stolen intellectual property, subsidized state-owned enterprises, dumped cheap goods into global markets, that tariffs are necessary to level the playing field and bring manufacturing jobs back home. Fair points. China's trade practices have been problematic for years, under administrations of both parties. But here's the rebuttal. Tariffs are a blunt instrument. They hurt American consumers and businesses as much as, or more than, they hurt China. And Trump's approach has been erratic. He escalates, then pulls back, then escalates again. That unpredictability makes it nearly impossible for companies to plan, invest, or hire. The Madrid talks were supposed to stabilize things. Instead, according to the Financial Times, the U.S. introduced new restrictions on Chinese companies right after those talks. Beijing sees that as bad faith. Whether you agree with China's policies or not, breaking a tacit understanding right after negotiations undermines future diplomacy. And there's a competence question. If your goal is to counter China's influence, you need allies. You need Europe, Japan, South Korea, and others to coordinate pressure. Trump's tariff threats and go-it-alone approach have alienated many of those partners. Democratic leaders have argued for years that the smarter strategy is multilateral, using alliances and trade agreements to set rules China has to follow if it wants access to wealthy markets. That's the contrast in governing philosophy. One approach says, slap tariffs, talk tough, wing it. The other says, build coalitions, enforce rules, invest in American competitiveness through infrastructure and innovation. One is reactive and transactional. The other is strategic and durable. You can guess which one Democrats have advocated. So what happens next? Trump said Friday he's not sure the meeting with Xi will happen. Then he said they'd probably meet anyway. That contradiction in a single day tells you how chaotic this process is. According to the Financial Times, Trump cast doubt on the meeting, then walked it back. November 1st is the stated deadline for the new tariffs and export controls. That's less than 3 weeks away. Between now and then, watch for 3 things. 1. Does the Trump administration actually publish the detailed list of products and software covered by the new measures? Vague threats are one thing. Legal regulations are another. 2. Does China retaliate further? They've already expanded rare earth controls and targeted Qualcomm. Will they go after Apple or Tesla next? 3. Does the meeting between Trump and Xi actually happen? And if it does, do they strike a deal or just agree to keep talking? Corey Combs, associate director at Trivium China, told the Financial Times that Beijing is rapidly adjusting the approach, and perhaps the leadership does not even know exactly what is next. That uncertainty cuts both ways. It could mean flexibility. It could mean miscalculation. And miscalculation between nuclear-armed superpowers is dangerous. Here's what you can do. Pay attention to prices. If tariffs hit in November, you'll see it. Electronics, clothing, home goods. Track what you pay. When costs spike, remember why. Ask your elected officials what their plan is, not just on tariffs, but on competitiveness. Are they investing in American manufacturing, clean energy, and workforce training? Or are they just tweeting threats and support journalism that holds power accountable? The Financial Times broke this story with on-the-ground reporting from Shanghai and Washington. That's how we know what's really happening, not just what gets spun on social media. Democracy depends on an informed public. So here's the bottom line. Trump threatened massive new tariffs and export controls on China by November 1st. China says the U.S. escalated first and promises to fight back. Both sides are playing chicken with the global economy. and you're the one who'll pay for it, literally, if this goes wrong. The Geneva Truce in May proved these two countries can step back from the brink. The question is whether they will, or whether ego, miscalculation, and political theater will drag us into a trade war that hurts workers, consumers, and businesses on both sides of the Pacific. We promised you'd know what this means by the end. Now you do. If this breakdown helped you cut through the noise, subscribe for more clear, fact-first analysis of the stories that shape your life.
If you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos.